again looking very cozy in the feature match area.
Warm. Prepared for inclement weather. His parents would be proud.
The green light has been given and underway. We are here in round number 8. Eric very quickly sacrificing a windswept teeth for a land that he cannot get. Gerry is just, you can't get anything by him.
No.
Mystic Monastery is Thompson's land. For Eric, he searched up a prairie stream with the windswept heath, a legal target. A little bit better there for Eric. Turn number 2, picked up a copy of Flooded Strand. Here is a windswept heath. Now there is Jace, Vryn's Prodigy. So over to Thompson we go. We'll see if he has an answer to this card. These Jeskai Black decks, of course, do play some cheap red mana, cheap red removal. Fiery Impulses, Wild Slash, and such.
4 copies of Fiery Impulse on the list here. No Wild Slashes. Gerry's deck a lot more controlling, not in the market for shock so much.
Now, that wasn't Magnetic Insight. We saw Gerry a little bit earlier in the day cast that card. Looks like he has got 2 copies here this weekend, and a card you actually like in the deck quite a bit.
It makes a lot of sense to me. Like I said, when you have a lot of card drawing like Painful Truce and Treasure Cruise, card drawing without selection in decks like this, you are likely to flood out, so it's a nice way to cash in the lands later on in the game. And it's so synergistic with Delve cards, with your copies of Jace. Gerry able to play with Treasure Cruise and Murderous Cut in the list. That's a lot of delving, and I'm sure the Insight's a huge part of being able to support that much delve.
You saw an activation of Jace. There are 3 cards in the graveyard now. Eric does play a copy of Hellish Visionary. Draw a card. Looks like he's going to crack his fetch land as well. So now 4 cards in the graveyard for Eric. Jace looks like it'll be transforming on his next turn. Thompson takes his turn to play Jace. A Smoldering Marsh enters the battlefield tapped, and we'll be heading back Eric's way in just a moment.
Yeah, Gerry, unfortunately for him, having one of those kind of clunky off-curve draws where all of his lands are coming into play tapped, and on top of that, he wasn't able to have one of his shocks or other removal spells for Jace.
To Eric we go. His 4th turn of the game. Looks like Jace will be activated as the first order of business. Rally the Ancestors, the draw here. We'll find out what Eric does want to discard, and Jace will be transforming in just a moment. So Jace is the discard. There is the transformation into the Telepath Unbound. Thompson's so nice, going to give Eric a die. Going to take that Jace up to 6. And maybe we have another Elvish Visionary on the way, or perhaps an Antuco Husk. It's actually going to be a Fleshbag Marauder. I take it all back. That'll take care of the Jace. Eric will have to sacrifice his Elvish Visionary. Now we head back Thompson's way. Thompson, slow start out of the gates, as you mentioned, because of the lands.
Yep. Very clunky opening here. Thompson, 2 Manek copies of Disdainful Stroke, though. Very good for this matchup as the payoff cards in 4-color Rally, Collected Company, Rally the Ancestors. Disdainful Stroke gets them both.
Not Mystic Monastery. That's a land that Gerry has. It's a Monastery Mentor as we head back Hymel's way. There's Elvish Visionary. Hymel will draw a card. Another copy of Rally. And we saw this earlier on Matthew Tickle's match. This deck, it's got great mana. It's got some card drawing and all that sort of stuff, but sometimes it just doesn't get the lands to start the early stages of the game.
One of the weaknesses of 4-color Rally is that it is not a deck that plays well when it's missing land drops. A lot of the other decks in the format, because of Delve or just by virtue of having cheap cards, can play a pretty effective game when they miss their 4th land drop or their 5th land drop. Not really the case with Rally that needs to get to 4 mana, because most of its 3 mana plays, they're fine, but they're not enough to win the game on their own. You start needing to get some of your power cards.
Kalidas has shown up now. This one, a new card that we've seen a little bit today in sideboard. Saw from Jeff Hogan a little bit earlier. Thompson looks like one in his main, one in his sideboard this weekend.
Yep, and another great card for Rally. I think it's a little bit worse than it would have been a couple months ago with the printing of Reflector Mage. Rally can break out of creatures that do this, and it ends up much the same story, but it at least forces an answer.
It's got a lot of relevant text on it, too.
Yeah, a lot going on for this card in this matchup.
Yeah, I think this is the kind of card where it is good in this matchup, but it's probably good in other matchups as well. It's a well-priced body, lifelink, relevant text everywhere. I think there's a lot to like about this card. Well, there's Illiport Cutthroat. Jace will tick up, going to slow Kalidas down.
And now, Hymel's just at the mercy of Thompson not having a lot of removal spells. Every kill spell exiles, which is really bad news. Triggers Prowess for the Monastery Mentor. Allows him to get some pressure, start wearing Jace down a little bit as well.
Yeah, every removal spell makes a monk and a zombie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty silly.
Rarely do you see those 2 tribes allied together as part of the same fight.
Sam Black and Jacob Wilson.
Yeah.
Taking people down.
Typically they have different goals.
Here's Soulfire Grandmaster and just the passing of the turn, so no removal, it appears, for Thompson. Over to Hymel we're going to go. Looks like he's found another land here in Polluted Delta, so the mana issues looks like they may be solved now. And Jace will tick up to 9. Maybe we see a Jace Ultimate here. For Hymel, at least 2 copies of Rally in hand. Also has a copy of Collected Company, and he'll just pass the turn back as we go back over to Gerry. Unclear if there's any good attacks to be had here on Thompson's side of the board.
What's on the table right now looks fine to me.
Yeah.
Pretty risky for Hymel to do any sort of significant blocking. Trying to put any sort of block on Cletus is a good recipe to get blown out by 1 removal spell. And everything else, keep in mind with Cletus in play, it's just going to exile, so it doesn't really matter.
Thompson does have a copy of Crackling Doom in hand right now, but you can tell that he's trying to set something large up, because now that Eric has drawn lands, the dynamic of the game has changed.
Well, I think that Thompson is probably respecting the possibility of Collected Company, and then, what does he want to attack with? What's he trying to induce?
There is Collected Company. Crackling Doom here from Thompson. That will trigger Monastery Mentor, a Monk on the way, Fleshback Marauder down, exiled, and now there's a zombie. Also, Jace will fall down to 7. That's a really good Crackling Doom. Brings a lot along with it. Now Collected Company will resolve. Catacomb Sifter is in there. And I think that's it. Wow.
And Hymel can't feel comfortable with his position now because Thompson, like we mentioned, he's been playing off curve and a little clunky now. He found land number 5 last turn. You got to imagine he can start deploying some resources in his hand pretty efficiently. And if there are removal spells, because of Soulfire Grandmaster, Monastery Mentor, Cletus, it's really problematic if Thompson can just string together a bunch of removal spells. This changes if Hymel can get his hands on a Reflector Mage, then he can get Cletus off the table and do some stuff, but exiling is really problematic.
And it appears to be a problem. There's a Flooded Strand. So lands, no longer an issue. Eric's drawn a couple in a row. And we know that he's got a bunch of Rally Ancestors in hand, but his graveyard's not stocked up very large. So he's going to take a look at it here to see what he's got options in down there. And I think he might just be passing the turn. Perhaps he'll start with Jace. From 7 to 4. Going to try Collected Company again. Top 6 again. Will this one be better than the previous one? That's the question.
Would be hard for it to be much worse.
Nantuko Husk and Catacomb Sifter. I would say that's better. Another Eldrazi Scion on the way. Starting to build things up a little bit.
The problem is that I don't think this board, for as impressive as it looks, and certainly the Nantuko Husk is sizable, I don't think there's going to be much in the way of effective attacks here. And if Hymel can't get his graveyard back online, this is sort of a dead end. Eventually, he's going to get overwhelmed by Monastery Mentor.
Well, it sounds like he needs to find something like a Sidisi's Faithful then, because one card that Eric does not have, to take a look through the deck list, no Reflector Mages.
Wow, in the 75 or just in the...
It looks like none in the 75.
That is surprising.
Now, he's got more stuff like Merciless Executioner and Fleshbag Marauder in his build. I do agree with you. A little surprising.
Well, the problem is that those cards are great when you're playing them on curve, and they're really powerful with Rally and Collected Company. But you get into spots where there's a particular creature you need to get off the table, and you can't. And that's exactly the spot that Hymel's in right now. His Edict effects are not very good.
Collected Company, the draw. And now it almost feels like Thompson gets to go wider than Eric does. Every creature that gets killed again, exiled, you get a monk, you get a zombie. On Nantuko Husk and a passing of the turn, looks like Thompson might sacrifice that Flooded Strand. He's going to do that on the upkeep.
It's, again, another reasonable attacker here, but it does not amount to very much.
Thompson will draw. Blue to Delta is what he's found. He'll sacrifice that right away. Perhaps he's got something to do with all this mana now.
I believe he has a copy of Treasure Cruise.
That's something to do with all that mana. Gonna get a basic swamp here, Will Thompson. As he taps a single blue, it is a Treasure Cruise. That'll bring some monks along with it, thanks to Monastery Mentors, plural. 3 cards on the way here for Thompson. Canopy Vista among the cards that have been drawn. There's another monk token. Much different than the Jeskai Black decks that we have seen Todd Anderson play.
A lot of new cards, too, which is cool.
Yeah, same kind of idea of trying to be a controlling deck, but doesn't have, like, I would say, the huge reliance on Soulfire Grandmaster or Jace like he used to. Because, as you said, there's just a lot of new cards now.
And then because of that, you see 0 copies of Ojutai's command in the deck as well.
Yeah. That card has fallen off a cliff. Four mana. Murderous Cut. Treasure Cruise going to get delved away. 2 more monks. We'll have to see what gets targeted with this Murderous Cut. We can find out, that's for sure. A little bit unclear at this stage. Looks like he might have Eclectic Company in response. Thompson wants to take a look and see what's in the graveyard. And the target here is Nantuko Husk.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll be a disdainful stroke to use 2 more monks. Husk, Exiled, Zombie. Whew. This is a tough board to beat.
And certainly it looks bad for Merciless Executioner and Fleshbag Marauder.
Why? Break it down for me. Also, these creatures are huge, so they can afford to attack. And if we take a look at Cletus again here, the thing is we're putting the onus on removal spells. It says just when they die.
Yeah.
So if there's an exchange in combat.
Yeah, you can't brawl with this thing either.
Yeah. This is another one of those cards that I think may have gone overlooked a little bit when all the previews came flowing out for Oath of the Gatewatch because the cards were so powerful and so, I guess, bombastic is the word I want to use. You know, you just saw a lot of cards, Eldrazi, Creature Lands, all that stuff. Maybe you overlooked this one.
Well, this seems like the type of mid-range threat that needs some time to get online. Doesn't really do anything the turn it comes into play, and those cards can struggle to show up sometimes in Standard because the quality of the creature and creature removal spells is so high. But this, if a non-token creature an opponent controls dies text box, in this matchup is huge. I mean, I don't really see a way for Hymel to operate around this. The times that we've seen people get out from this card involve Reflector Mage or a removal spell, but playing through this card, being on the table, seems really hard for this deck.
And with all the creatures out on the battlefield from Monastery Mentors pumping out monks as Thompson will sacrifice a Bloodstained Mire, it does seem pretty difficult for Hymel to actually work through this. There's a basic mountain. Curious to see what comes next. Might be Chandra. Oh, okay, just the Treasure Cruise. And a whole bunch of triggers. 2 monks, 3,000 prowess triggers. Looks like Thompson only picked up lands off of that, however.
I think he found a Crackling Doom.
Yeah? Well, he left his mana perfect to cast it. 2 more monks. Whole bunch more prowess triggers. Hey, and a zombie. That's fun.
If Thompson's doing this now, I'm assuming that he's just doing this to just set up a big alpha strike.
I like attacking with a lot of creatures. Yeah. What's also notable is that Gerry's casting all of these spells. Soulfire Grandmaster not even working its way into the equation as far as rebuying spells.
Yeah, got better stuff to do with his mana.
Yeah. It's a wild thing to think, but that's almost certainly true. Yeah, and Eric is just going to concede this game because this is too many creatures. They're much too large. Gerry Thompson is going to win game number 1 here over Eric Hymel. Jeskai Black up a game over 4-color rally. That was the power of Gleed at work.
That was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, it looked like, Hymel was going to get into a spot to maybe work through it. A lot of copies of Rally and Collected Company. Even got to resolve a few copies of Collected Company and just could not get that card off the table and could not operate with it in play.
Well, to the sideboards we are going to go now. We will take a look at what both players are working with. And I mentioned no Reflector Mages, and you can see the sideboard here. 2 Duress, 3 on Defense of the Foremost, 3 Ration Clerics, 2 Dispels, a Fleshback Marauder, and 4 Murderous Cut here for Eric.
Well, some number of the Duress and Dispels, probably all 4 copies, I think will be coming in this matchup. And the 4 copies of Murderous Cut. It's not the best against Jeskai Black because they don't really have that many creatures and you can't play that reactive of a game, but Cleus, as you saw, Hymel just needs more cards that can get that off the table.
For Gerry Thompson, he's got another Cletus in the sideboard, 3 Radiant Flames, 2 Roast, 2 Dispel, 3 Negates, a Chandra Flamecaller, a Linvala the Preserver, an Infinite Obliteration, and an Utter End.
I like some mixture of the Dispel Negate stuff. There aren't that many spells, so you can go overboard with it pretty easily, but I think a little bit of that stuff is fine. I think that Thompson probably has enough removal to make Radiant Flames an okay option for him here. It's not good all the time in the matchup, but if you're picking apart other pieces of the synergy, Radiant Flames can be really good. And definitely want the other copy of Cletus, as we saw what happened when that card went unchecked in the first game.
Yeah, you're going to have to kill that thing to be able to operate, will Eric Hymel. So that gives you an idea of what both players are working with. And now what we are working with the creature collection of StarCityGames.com, we got some new stuff. Now, Grizzly Brand, that thing is a member of our game night community. We've got some playmats, sleeves, and some player bundles of that. You can find that at go.starcitygames.com/creature collection. And if you're into zebras, like I am, you can find
Oh, I did not know about this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right.
So, playmats, sleeves, and player bundles as well. Go.starcitygames.com/creature collection. Here's the thing. We need a name.
For the zebra.
For the zebra.
Okay.
Chris Van Meter, Andrew Boswell, they worked on this a little bit.
Okay.
They felt that it has to start with a Z. I believe Andrew Boswell, if memory serves, calls it Zachariah the Zebra.
Well, I would suggest that the zebra could be a woman.
See? That's why you're back. I agree right away. I was kind of thinking stripe.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's just not particularly good. It's not creative enough.
Okay.
So, again, this is really where you get paid.
What about Oreo? Oreo's pretty it's pretty gender neutral, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Oreo the zebra?
Yeah, that's cute. It's a baby zebra, or it's young at least. I don't know. It's baby necessarily, but it's not an adult. It's in contrast with the largeness of the zebras around it, so it's definitely a child.
Okay. Now, does this have anything to do with the ice cream that we ate earlier?
It could be inspired by that, yes.
Okay.
But I think the name stands on its own merit.
Fair enough. We will consider Oreo the zebra.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
I'll think about it some more. I'm sure I can come up with some more good names.
Well, this is the sort of thing that pops up, when you wake up in the morning, middle of the night, you're taking a shower, pot of coffee's on, boom, you think of the name. It's tough to think of it on the spot. You can't just do Otter Van Bismarck every time.
Yeah, not every name is going to be Otter von Bismarck.
Yeah, that's going to be tough to do. Both players are going to take a look at their openers, by the way.
If everything I came up with was an A+, you would start just calling them C's. Because it's all the same, right? You need to have some mediocre ones, which I acknowledge. Oreo's not my best work.
Okay.
But you need to have that to contrast it with the occasional kernels of genius that I produce.
Understood. It's a balance.
Right.
That's what it's all about.
Compare and contrast.
Looks like Eric's going to take a mulligan while Gerry is happy with his 7 cards. Gerry Thompson has been starting tournaments undefeated recently, and the day 2s have not been going particularly well. Most notably, that Season 4 Invitational, where he was really thinking after day 1, got a real shot at the Players' Championship here, and then he kind of crashed and burned, unfortunately for him. Does not want to see that be the case yet again. Off to a great start. And it looks like his build, at least how Game 1 played out, looks like he's pretty good against the Rally deck. Hymel played Evolving Wilds on turn number 1, did not sack it at the end of Thompson's turn, so it leads me to believe he needs to draw some lands.
All right. Well, there's a lot of bad case scenarios going on here. There's
Okay.
a couple. One is he's so desperate for lands that he doesn't want to thin one out of the deck. The other is his colored mana situation is so bad that he needs more information. For example, if he draws Sunken Hollow, now he might want to get a green or white source of mana. But if he draws, a Canopy Vista, maybe he goes and gets an island.
So waiting there, probably the best idea.
Well, if you have nothing to play on curve, and if you fetch right away with your Evolving Wilds, you're likely to draw a redundant color land next turn and not be able to cast anything. You're probably better served just playing off curve, acknowledging that's going to take you a little while to get set up. Or the other option is, I guess he liked the card that he scryed to the top so much and didn't want to shuffle it away.
Sure. Flooded Strand was the draw for the turn. There's a forest. Now here's a Catacomb Sifter. So appears to be operating okay.
Yeah, it's got colors of mana online, got to cast something. 5 cards is 5 cards, but it's not a total disaster to start with.
For Thompson, a Smoldering Marsh and an island, and now here's a Bloodstained Mire. Thompson will sacrifice this Bloodstained Mire, a land on the way, going to go with a basic mountain. And it looks like just the passing of the turn, back over to Hymel. Here's an attack for 2, let's make it 3. After that is another Catacomb Sifter, a Flooded Strand, and a passing of the turn. Soulfire Grandmaster the draw here for Thompson.
More problematic, I believe, is the Radiant Flames that is in Thompson's hand.
That would be a bit of an issue, yeah. Yeah, that would be tough. Here's a Soulfire Grandmaster. Maybe we've got a big setup here.
Or if he's sitting on something like Negate or Disdainful Stroke, he doesn't want to open up the door for Collected Company to resolve. And even if you kill your Soulfire Grandmaster, you gain a lot of life for your trouble.
It appears as though he can be a little bit patient right now.
Also, with the Flood Strand up, Hymel could have some sort of counterspell of his own. Could have his own Negate. When your opponent's on 5 cards and you have something as powerful as Radiant Flames on this kind of board, your mindset needs to be more about preventing disaster than maybe making the most efficient play on any one given turn.
Here come the Catacomb Scepter. Soulfire Grandmaster, no interest in blocking. This is Nantuko Husk. And now Thompson will just untap. Time to draw a card. Picked up a copy of Roast. Thompson with a Swamp. There's the Radiant Flames you mentioned, and that one has lifelink.
Hymel can just put everything on the Husk.
Yep.
Prevents a lot of life gain, gets to keep the Nantuko Husk. It's still a disaster, but at least he gets to keep something.
There's a Prairie Stream off the Pluto Delta. Gets to enter the battlefield untapped. And we're going to see some sacrificing here in some capacity. Going to get the Scry a bunch, will Eric. I believe he sacrificed both these Eldrazi Silence for mana because of the Collected Company in hand, and Gerry has got that kind of set up and ready to go here. And he'll sacrifice this as well. So now Radiant Flames will resolve. Thompson will gain some life here. Looks like 6 total. And now here's Collected Company. And I don't think he can negate this fast enough, assuming he does have the counterspell. And there is Disdainful Stroke. That'll work just fine. Eric has an Nantuko Husk and nothing else. There's an attack for 2. The follow-up, a Jace. Not a bad follow-up. That'll give him a shot to get back into it. Thompson
Very good if he gets on tap.
Yep. Thompson picked up a copy in Negate, and he's very quickly sacrificing a Pluto Delta. Sunken Hollow, the land of choice. You can see just how good the Jeskai Black mana base is. All the colors there. Now here's a Roast. I'm going to go after Jace. And now a Treasure Cruise.
And Thompson still leaving a counterspell left over in his hand should Hymel find Rally or Collect a Company off the top.
Yeah.
And Thompson, like I said, focusing on preventing disaster.
Here's an attack from 2 from Nantuko Husk. The follow-up here is Jace yet again. Thompson will draw. Looks like a copy of Polluted Delta. So he wants to go about doing this turn now. At least 1 negate, potentially 2 in Thompson's hand right now to stop the big payoff spells.
But if he's got no pressure and no removal spell, this Jace is a big concern.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like Thompson is in the old Jeskai Black flooding out.
We see it quite a bit.
Yeah, we have seen this before.
There's an activation of Jace. Draw, discard Windswept Teeth. The transformation is complete. It'll start on 5. It's going down to 2. It's an attempt to collect a company, and there's a negate to stop that. Husk will serve for 2. Thompson will fall down to 13. Now Thompson's going to make it 12 as he sacrifices the Flooded Strand. Basic Plains weapon of choice. But Thompson does need some action here. Picked up a Jace of his own.
Not shabby.
Yeah, there are worse draws. Wooded Foothills the land for the turn. There is Jace. And now Thompson will just pass the turn back. Hymel will untap that Husk on all those lands. He's got an active Jace on 2. He'll draw a card for the turn. And now he's tapping mana, so we'll see what this is. Catacomb Sifter, okay. I'm bringing a Scion along with it. Sacrifice that Scion. Time to scry. Top card becomes the bottom card. And now it's Grim Horospex. Okie dokie. And now Nantukos gets to come into the red zone. So now you just wonder what's going on with Gerry's hand.
Well, I'm assuming it's some mixture of lands and spell-based counters. He would have interacted with this board if he could have. He would have killed that Jace before I got to flip. He probably would have answered the Nantuko Husk by now. So not a whole lot here makes sense, except for counterspells and lands.
Canopy Vista. And now a drawing of a card. Let's make it another one. Monastery Mentor has been found. An all-star in game number 1. Flooded Strand is a discard. Jace is going to transform. 5 counters with Radiant Flames and Treasure Cruise in the graveyard to bring back. Negate, not a great target right now. Radiant Flames going to do a nice job of clearing some stuff up. It would give Eric a card from the Horospex, so interesting to see what will happen here.
Well, there's the option here of Thompson playing Monastery Mentor, flashing back the Treasure Cruise, and just hoping to find random spot removal to pick apart the board, generate a bunch of monks, and try to win the game that way.
Looks like you might be seeing him go that Monastery Mentor route. Down goes Jace to 2, and now he's going to go for a cruise. I think it's on the super cheap. Looks like it's going to be 2 mana. There go all 6 cards.
Twice as much as it usually is.
3 cards drawn. Magmatic Insight. Give me another monk. Give me 2 more cards. Painful Truths. Don't know if he wants even more cards, especially at the cost of life right now.
It's gone from nothing to draw 8 this turn, potentially.
Yeah, there are worse turns. There are definitely worse turns. But right now it looks like he's just going to leave Negate up. We're going to head Eric's way now.
Now with Thompson having refueled, you got to feel like as long as you prevent one of the big spells from resolving, you should be fine. You've got a lot of inevitability here.
Here come them beatdowns. Well, there appears to be some blocking that needs to be done. Block there. A little unsure of himself right now. Looks like that monk wanted to jump in front of the old Catacomb Sifter. I think most importantly here is that Monastery Mentor is looking to trade with Grim Horospex.
Yes, and once the Horospex leaves the battlefield, Hymel's just playing with the top of his deck. Tom's got a ton of card drawing here, so that's actually the big threat. It makes a lot of Hymel's mediocre draws actually quite good because they can be cycled for more cards and so on and so forth. So even though the Husk is the closest thing to lethal, it is not as important as getting the Horospex off the board right now.
Catacomb Sifter gets sacrificed to the Husk, which means that Eric got to draw a card from the Grim Horospex. Grim Horospex and Monastery Mentor do trade. Jace is going up to slow down the monk. And now we head back Thompson's way. Wandering Funeral, the draw. And where does Gerry want to go now? Painful Truths down to 5. 3 more cards on the way. Radiant Flames among them. There's also a Jason there. It appears just looking for a way to close it out as he takes a look at the graveyard. They're very far ahead as far as cards are concerned. Not that far ahead, and actually not at all ahead in regards to life.
And with a lot of negates in hand, he at this point really only has to be concerned about creatures off the top. So what are the problematic ones? Well, with a Husk in play, something like Catacomb Sifter is problematic. But Hymel's running out of draws here because his spells right now are no good. I think Thompson has access to too many copies of negate.
Not a great attack there. You see him shake his head a little bit about that one. That monk got targeted by Jace last turn. So.
Probably won't end up costing Thompson in the end, but you can tell Thompson cares a lot about playing precise magic, and that was an attack with not much of a goal.
Indeed. Evolving Wilds here from Eric. A sacrifice a land. Then we're going to go back his way. A Flooded Strand, the draw, to go along with a Flooded Strand in hand. He'll play one of them. Then Tuco Husk looks to come into the red zone. He's going to attack Thompson.
I think that's a repeat of the 0 power attack. Eric,
hey,
Eric giving it right back.
Absolutely, one on each side. It's late here in Atlanta. Checking the time, it is 8 o'clock actually. Just turned 8 o'clock. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Going to recast Magmatic Insight here, Will Thompson. I like that card in this deck.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
I think it's a really, really nice inclusion. Wandering Funeral going on the beatdown path. Jace going to fall down to 1. Shambling Vent, another creature land. Hey, deck that's got a black-white one and a red-blue one. Oh, yeah. Where do I sign up, baby? I love it. Eric going to sacrifice that Flood Strand, get himself a Canopy Vista.
2 of each. And it's nice because you kind of want versatility. You'd rather have 1 of each than 2 of either one of them. And it's a little bit easier on your mana to activate both in the same turn if they're spread across multiple colors.
I just want to dabble.
Just a sampler.
Yeah. That's all I want to do. I just want to dabble around. Husk will attack. Jace is going to block and then activate. Here's Rally of the Ancestors. That's rather unlikely. There's Negate. Draw and discard here for Gerry. Radiant Flames, the draw. Wooded Foothills to discard. Transformation complete. Jason's going to target the Monk. There's a Flooded Strand. Pass the turn back.
And now Hymel is officially on empty.
Yep. Fiery Impulse to draw. That can take care of the Nantuko Husk. If Thompson even deems it necessary.
Yeah. I mean, Gerry at this point is approaching a position where he can take care of Jace, take care of that Nantuko Husk, attack Hymel for some points of damage, and leave up counterspell mana.
The Vent and the Fumarole are active. And now it's time for the beatdowns. Gonna spin the Fumarole into a 4-power creature. Jace is going to tick up, slow down the Husk, and just pass the turn back Will Thompson. Hymel will draw. Didn't get a great look at it. But he's tapping mana, so it was certainly a spell. And it's another copy Nantuko Husk. The interesting thing about this deck is there are times where it looks like an unbeatable deck, 4-color Rally, and then there are times where it looks decidedly mediocre.
Well, if you're able to stay on top of the payoff cards in Rally and Collected Company, the rest of the deck isn't all that strong. And Thompson, sweepers, and spot removals, normally those cards aren't all that effective against Rally, but if you're shutting the door on Collected Company and on Rally Ancestors, the spot removal spells become very good.
A Fiery Impulse will take care of one Nantuko Husk. Now, one thing to note as well, as here's a Treasure Cruise. We've talked about in the past how this deck has a propensity to flood out the Jeskai Black deck and also takes a little while to close. You take a look at the time, 13:35. Still having a little bit of difficulty getting the job done if we had to make our way into a third game here.
Yeah, it's not the fastest deck here. This game has been a little bit on the slow and uneven side too. Jace on both sides of the table, and that has a habit of slowing down the games too. But he's starting to get on the offensive.
Wandering Fumarole going to go active. Here come the beatdowns. Spin the Fumarole. Bunch of damage to be dealt here. A Bloodstained Mire. Jace will tick up to 7. And that'll be it for Thompson's turn. Eric will draw, as he's at 5 right now. And does this one do anything?
Well, he's dead on board to the creature lands and the creature, so.
And the answer is no. Gerry Thompson going to win this match here over Eric Hymel. 2-0. Jeskai Black will take care of 4-color Rally. And for Thompson, it's another undefeated start. He is 8-0 with 1 round left to play. He's already locked up day number 2. That's not a question. Now it's if he can be undefeated yet again.
And, we've seen the lesson now in back-to-back rounds on recipes for beating 4-color Rally. Gerry Thompson this round and Brad Nelson in the round previous. If you can fight over the payoff cards effectively, counterspells are the easiest way to do it. But